Welcome back to the channel. Did you see that amazing camera work? I'd like to thank you guys for being here. I'm excited to show this second rock home that I own. It's the first of 4 historic buildings that I've owned, but this first one will always be my main love. We'll have a discussion on that, and then later in the video I'm going to show you some readings I did yesterday morning of the greenhouse, the final reading with the little infrared gun, and then I'll stop nerding out with that and move on to some other preparation ideas I'm really excited to share. So let's get into this discussion. I had 2 different headlines that I came across yesterday, and they might not seem related, but to me they were. The first one was that Microsoft, which had just laid off, I think it was 10,000 of their employees, also just invested a large amount of money in the new Chat GPT, which is that artificial intelligent software that's available for us normal folks to go take a run with. You've probably seen that. So it's a platform that's available where you can ask it questions and be blown away by the technology of the future. Well, pretty ironic. Right after massive amounts of layoffs, they're investing in that technology. Is there a connection? Probably. The other headline, which seems extremely related, for this discussion at least, was the Prime Minister of Japan. He announces that their society is no longer sustainable because of their birth rate. Think about that. I mean, that's a bold statement coming from the Prime Minister. That's not demographers or other doomsday folks. That's coming from the Prime Minister. And so the discussion I want to have is, what is happening in this world? We have these very elite and rich people flying in their private jets over to their secret chambers across sea, and they're deciding what's best for us, and they're deciding what number of world population numbers we should have. And I mean, who are these guys? You just kind of wish that each of them would have had older brothers to kind of take care of some of that weirdness when they were younger. Because they all grown up and they're extremely pampered and they think that they have the truth. But I think we all know that there is only one truth, and it's surely not coming out of the elites of this world. And with all the problems that we have, I mean, I suggest the answer is also not in artificial intelligence. Man might think that they have all these answers, but they don't. Man would say that the earth and its resources are limited. And I think that God would say that there's enough and to spare. Stop screwing around, people. Anyway, I think that that's something we need to consider, because if you've been paying attention the last couple of years, we've had not just supply shortages, but labor shortages. I mean, you know it. You go to your favorite restaurant, your favorite fast food place. I mean, every industry on earth has been rocked with labor shortages. Well, what's going to happen as we continue to make decisions away from family and limit kids and not value them and have discussions about how we need less? And I mean, all these old traditional values and rules are going out the wayside, and we wonder why society is breaking down. Well, not a pretty thought for Japan. Look at the demographics of China. If you follow, there's a gentleman named Peter Zine, and he talks a lot about China and the demographics that's happening to them. I mean, we're talking massive shifts in economies that could start wars and famines and so forth, shortages. These are some big topics. I just wanted to share that with you, though, as a thought. Here in this house, there was a gentleman when I was in kind of doing some fixing up on the inside, and I got a knock on the door, and there was a 90-plus-year-old man that was there, and he introduced himself, and he told me that this was his house growing up. So he was actually born in the house that 90 plus years ago. And he says that he was one of 8. So they had a family of 9. So they had a family of 11 that lived inside this little rock cottage. I mean, this thing is 15 feet by 30 feet long. And they were born inside there and lived there. I think that that's remarkable. And, you know, we've shifted away from the values of yesteryear, where we could live and thrive and be sustained in such a small place. Now we think we have to have bigger, and we have to have everything that our parents had. And yet we're probably the most depressed generation that America's seen. Not because it's been hard, but because it's been so easy. I don't think it's done good things for us. It'd be nice to get back to some of that, wouldn't it? So I only bring that up with a homestead channel because the ramifications of all these things will affect us. You don't think birth rates are going to affect Social Security? I mean, that whole experiment was based off of a population that had larger amounts of babies. So without that same demographic number of babies, it puts the whole system upside down. So someone like me, I'm 44 years old, and do I expect to get paid back any of my money? And for the record, it's my money. It should be a lockbox. It's not. They've spent it. And will I get payment of my money back, let alone the interest I should get back? I don't know. I kind of doubt it. I'm not planning on it. And I think, you know, part of a self-sustaining mindset should be that we've got to pull our heads out of the sand. It might be a scary world. It might be scary talking about these things, Nate. But talk about them, think about them, and plan. So if I get Social Security, I'm excited. Then I will go use that money and do some amazing things with it, okay? But if I don't get it, guess what? I haven't been planning on it. I've been making a plan B outside of something I can't control. I cannot control that our politicians don't have it together. But I surely am going to try to control as much as I can my retirement. Anyway, just a thought. Well, we can go on to some happier topics. Head on over into the greenhouse. Just a reminder, if you can, to like and share and subscribe to the channel. I'm just seeing what type of interest is out there. I've got a lot of things I want to share. I want to share some things on wheat and food storage and pantry storage. We haven't even looked at the homestead in depth, so I'm hoping the next video will be an introduction to some of the other items in the homestead, especially the animals. I want to introduce you to them. If you're interested, though, please subscribe and help us grow the channel a little bit to where we know this is a discussion people are wanting to have. My format is going to be very similar. I want to talk about some things that can wake us up. I think it's good to be looking over both shoulders, learning how to cope with things that are scary because they're happening. You can pretend they're not and keep your head in the sand and feel good. But does that do you any favor? Just become aware of it, and with a positive attitude, we're going to look forward to solutions. And that's what the second half of all these videos are things within our power. This summer, I want to talk a lot about gardening. I want to share some ideas about grow beds and ways to extend the grow season on the front end and the back end, so that despite the climate, even the harsh climate that we have here where I'm at, that you can grow lots of food that you can store. And we'll be talking about how you store it. So anyway, if you're interested in these things, let's grow the channel a little bit and keep having a discussion. And appreciate it. And we'll go into the greenhouse. Boy, I do not know if you can see this cold morning. Beautiful, but cold. Welcome back to the Manti greenhouse. I just wanted to show you a little bit of an update on the greenhouse performance. Last night got down to 0 degrees, and we got about maybe 3 inches of snow, possibly 4. Right now it's warmed up to about 2 degrees, so it's super cold. I'm I also kind of want to just point out the snow on the greenhouse. That's not a problem with that 55-degree angle. I kind of wish that the snow would keep on there a little bit more, because I think that would be somewhat of an insulation for it. So maybe that's assisting us today. I'm going to go look in the greenhouse, but the good news is, on a worst case scenario day, this is kind of like a prior video where we had a worst case scenario where we had several days of cloud cover before, not charging up the greenhouse. Yesterday it snowed all day, so we didn't see any sunlight. So we didn't get very charged inside the greenhouse, yet we still stayed at 40 degrees. So 40 is fine. The tropics can live, and all of our vegetables can live. Even on this closest planter box, we have plants that are germinating, even though the low temperatures can be around 40. So realistically, 40 is adequate, but I am going to be doing some things to get it even warmer. And I just kind of wanted to touch bases on what the greenhouse will look like going forward. So this winter, I feel like, is the most important winter, because it's the winter where I just force myself to make this off-grid. Now this next summer, I probably will be putting in an electric heater for convenience. So if I want to warm it up to 45, I'll just turn it on. I'll probably put some automation on my windows and my vents, little cams, probably put some sensors on it so that I can tell if I did shut the windows or not, 'cause it seems like I'm always asking myself that. I just didn't want to do it this year. I want to force myself to think worst case scenarios, because a greenhouse is part that and it's part hobby. But with the way the world's going right now, I want to make sure I'm really ready. This next summer, we'll be working on other redundancies too. So we have a propane backup. The design is the main way that this thing should work. A propane backup is a second. I'll have an electric heater backup, and I'm going to be working on, probably doing some kind of an insulation for the front of the greenhouse. If you go and search up on YouTube Chinese greenhouse, you'll see what I mean. I've never really seen one around here. I'll be doing some searching to see if somebody's come up with some great ideas. But if not, you'll see one on here. And I'll tell you more about that later. But I just think it's very important, the idea of redundancies. Backup to your backup to your backup to your backup. And the more you're prepared, the less you shall fear, right? It is a very true statement. So I just want to give you that update on the temperatures. All right, and just one update in here. It really is nice in here. Kind of a cool color. You probably can't tell. There you go. But with the snow in here, everything just has a different light for sure. 40 degrees feels phenomenal with it being so cold outside. But I went through and just shot through temperature readings on both sides. The thermal mass, this will be the last time, because hopefully today, after a basketball game, I can get the rest of this painted. So it's all going to be painted. So this is the last day of that data with the gun. Don't worry, the gun's going away. The heat gun. But the thermal mass has equalized. So the heat that we did have on the dark side that's been painted has dissipated. The temperature readings on both sides are about the same. And I guess I would expect that, but I just was curious about that, as if there would be some residual heat that maybe wouldn't expand even though it was cold. But no, it does get rid of it all pretty much. And goes down to, the greenhouse wants to be 40 without being charged, and it wants to be 45 with being charged without any of the electric or propane inputs. So I don't know all the science behind it. It is what it is. But, again, as we just look at these plants, I mean, here we've got a dragon fruit. Let's see if I can show you. And it's just right by this window. That little bugger's actually from when it got too hot. But it's doing great. When we bought it, it was only, this high. So we've grown about about 4 linear feet. in a wavy manner right by the window. Now, most of that growth was in the summer. But what I'm getting at is this bed that's by the wall, by the glazing, is doing just fine. Something that I thought was interesting too, I was shooting the glass just to see how warm it was. And it was like 20 degrees. So that's actually pretty impressive because this glazing is only an R3. This one's coming up at 18.7, so 19 degrees. The rest of this, the back wall and everything, seems to be around a 40 mark. So the barrel's 37. Maybe not quite 40. And 33 on that back wall. I was getting 40 readings some places. Oh yeah, if you go further inside into the barrels, it's funny, but they are warmer than the ones on the outside. So everything hugged up next to each other helps. So all in all, the whole greenhouse is working well with each other.